I'm your host, Joshua.
And I'm your host, Ariel.
And we're the Midnight Guild. Welcome back, everybody. How are ya? We hope great.
We hope the best ever.
The best ever. So welcome back to another episode of the Midnight Guild. Yes. Ariel has prepared us something fabulous to listen to. I don't know what it's about, but she says it's fabulous. So
it's good. Y'all are going to enjoy. Hope you guys are having a great week.
Yes. How are you doing, Presh?
Honey, I had a rough week last week. I ain't gonna lie to you. That seasonal depression be hitting.
Honey.
But I started feeling better on Saturday. So, honey, I'm back in it today.
I have not caught a break because no sooner did I get over with the flu, honey, did we have a noro outbreak, the norovirus outbreak at the workhouse. Yes. And then I spent my weekend laid up.
Stomach bug, honey.
Stomach bug. Honey, can't win for losing.
Can't win
for losing. But listen, we finally got a day of sunshine, honey.
Oh, I know. Today it's just...
Yes, the clouds parted, honey. The clouds parted and the sunshine finally came through.
Saturday and Sunday was pretty good, and Saturday was really nice.
I was going to say...
I was out and about.
I was not.
After being a hermit for the week because I was just having a time.
I was going to say this is the farthest that I have driven in 2 weeks.
You don't even know how many books I've read this last week because I was just holed up in this house not doing nothing.
I have watched Downton Abbey on repeat twice,
honey, all the way through 2 times,
including the movies. I rented them.
I watched Nosferatu.
She did.
I was let down a little bit. I thought it was going to be better, but I went into it trying not to have high hopes because most of the time something that's like, because everybody was talking about how good it was.
Yeah.
And I was like, most of the time when that happens, it's going to not meet your expectations.
I was going to say, you're actually the only, which now I've not been looking for it either, but I've not watched Nosferatu. I kind of want to, I've not known anybody who has. You know, not like Oz, honey.
Yeah.
I mean, honey, Oz came out. I knew 17, 20 people.
Yeah, I went and saw it 3 times.
Yeah. But this one, like, I'm curious about it.
No, you should watch it. And then you also need to watch Amelia Perez. It's a musical.
I did on my agenda.
It's so good.
I
thought it was going to be like, because it's like super critically acclaimed and won a bunch of awards and everything like that at the last Oscars. And I was like, this is probably going to suck ass because most of them are not good. They give them all these awards. They are not good. So I was like, I was just having nothing else to do. And so I turned it on or whatever. And I was like, oh.
Okay.
And then I started getting into it. By the end of it, I was like, this is so good. You'll like it. As soon as I watched it, I thought of you. I was like, Josh will really enjoy this.
I'll have to look it up.
It's good. It's good. So are you ready for that?
I'm so ready. Like I said, I don't even know really. The only thing she has told me is it's stalkerish. That's the only thing I know.
Mm-hmm. And that's going to throw you off a little bit because you're going to be like, what? Once I start getting into the story, you're going to be like, this just took a turn. Okay. So today's story is I got off the Sci-Fi Channel. Like, it was originally on the Sci-Fi Channel, but I watched it later, like online. I can't remember what it's called, what the show's called, but it was on the Sci-Fi Channel, and it's basically like scary, like true scary stories, like the people that it happened to come on and tell their stories, and like they show a reenactment.
Oh, so like kind of like Unsolved Mysteries.
Yes, yeah, okay. But kind of like Unsolved Mysteries, but think paranormal.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I can get into that.
Yeah. Oh no, it's a good story. I'm tickled with it. So Keith and Diane live in London, Ohio. Okay, I know London, Ohio.
Oh. Cool story.
It's a small town.
Keith and Diane.
There you go.
Two strong people from the heartland.
Okay, so this is actually a really small town. It's called London, Ohio. There's not many people that live there, and they grew up there, and they knew each other growing up or whatever. Well, they end up getting together. They get married. And they actually have a little girl, and her name's Raven.
Oh.
And they live kind of off. They buy a house, and they kind of live off the beaten path. Like out in the country, and if you hear coughing, that's my dog. He's hacking. He's a little old man.
That poor baby.
You look at him. He's fine now.
I know.
Like, I just had to honk. Oh, Toby.
It is like a little old man.
I know. It sounds like a little. Okay, so they live kind of off the beaten path. Think like, out in the country, in the woods. They live like actually in the woods.
So you, basically.
Yeah, but I'm not in the woods are next to us, but we don't live in the woods.
Close the fucking enough.
Okay. They are surrounded by nobody. Like, I have like people around me at least, like, even though they're like, we're spaced out a lot. These, like, the closest person to them was like 7 to 10 minutes away.
Oh, honey, they way back out there.
Yeah, they're like way back there.
They way back out there.
Like I said, they don't have close neighbors, and their residence is super secluded out in the middle of
Walmart's
the woods.
not delivering to them.
Yeah, exactly. So, this happened in the 1980s, so Walmart wasn't delivering it anyway.
They were still a family store then.
Yeah. The Waltons still ran it.
It was a mom and pop shop.
Okay, so Diane would be by herself a lot of the time because Keith, the husband, he actually, he went to school. No, I'm sorry. He worked during the day and then he would go to night school for welding.
Oh.
Afterwards. And so he would come home like middle of the night. Okay, after classes. So, like I said, Diane is by herself. She's a stay-at-home mom. She's by herself with Raven all day long and for the majority of the night, except on weekends. So, Diane had grown up in the country and like in wooded areas. She's always been comfortable in the woods, like, so she doesn't get scared easy. Still having like hearing wildlife scampering around, seeing things, like seeing the deer outside, and nothing really alarms her. One night, Diane is putting Raven to bed. She puts her down. She goes downstairs. She's washing dishes in the kitchen, and there's a window right in front of her sink. And she's just kind of looking outside absentmindedly, and she sees a pair of yellow glowing eyes. Like, she sees the eye shine. And she doesn't think anything of it. Like, not a thing. She thinks, oh, it's a deer. And, but then it seemed like it was a little bit smaller than a deer. But she was like, well, it is super far away. She's like, honestly, it almost looks like human. Like, as tall as like a man.
Yeah.
And she was like, whatever. But she, like I said, she doesn't give it any thought. She really does think it's a deer. And so she just goes on about her business, finishes up dishes, moves into the living room, starting to put up toys and everything. And there's like think of like a big bay window in the living room. Okay, like that you would, it has a sliding door and all that jazz.
Very Cape Cod-ish.
Yes. She is, like I said, picking up toys and everything. And then she just kind of looks up as she's picking up. And there is 2 yellow eyes right up against the glass. But I mean, it's pitch black dark out there. And then she almost for a second thinks that maybe she's seeing things because of the glare from the inside of the cabin is hitting the window.
Yeah.
And where it's so dark outside, everything's just bounced back at her. So, I mean, she can see herself. So she's thinking, am I seeing like a light? Or is it just like the glare?
What is this?
Yeah. And so she just kind of is like, no. So she kind of walks back into the kitchen and she's just like, no, like, it's nothing. So she goes to go back into that other window in the kitchen. She's like, surely it's just the animal I saw earlier.
The critter.
She says she's like, I'm just freaking myself out. And so she looks out the window hoping to see the deer whatever it is that she saw out there still. Well, she doesn't. So when she doesn't see that animal, she's like, oh, okay, it's just that animal from earlier. And so she just not forgets about it, but she just tells herself that, and she's like, I'm just freaking myself out over nothing. So she's like washing her hands in the sink or washing something in the sink. And she just kind of is like, I wonder if the animal, like, she's like, wonder if it'll come back around here. Like, she's actually looking for it. And as she's looking, a head comes around the corner of the window and is right in front of her face. And it's 2 glowing, orangey, like golden eyes. And so she is so startled that she literally falls down in the floor. And that thing, like, is just staring back at her. I mean, they're just staring at each other. She doesn't even know for how long. And then she actually hears tires in the driveway, and it's Keith. He's coming home. And when she hears that, she just kind of looks over to the side, like, instinctually, because she hears a noise, which is the tires. And when she looks back, it's gone. And so Keith comes in the door. I mean, she doesn't even have time to get up and warn him. Like, he comes in the door, and he's like, sees her on the floor, and he's like, oh my God, what's wrong? What's wrong? And she tells him everything what happened and all that stuff. And that's when he just is like, basically like, honey, it was an animal. Like, nobody is out here in the middle of the woods. People probably don't even know that this house is here, let alone be out here, you know?
Because who would do that?
Right. So she's a little bit pissed that he's just kind of writing it off, but she does convince herself that he is probably right. So after about a month, life continues as normal. But one night, Diane is doing dishes, and in front of her is the kitchen window, and she's just kind of absentmindedly doing the dishes as regular, as normal. And out of the corner of the window, those same yellowish, like golden eyes come around and are just staring into her soul.
That's suspicious.
Yeah. So Diane sees them right away and like backs up from the window. She goes into like full blown mama mode.
Oh yeah.
She's like, bitch. So she runs through the cabin, turns off all the lights because in her mind, the glare from the window won't be hitting from the lights, and so she'll be able to see fully who's out there. But also, with her turning off all the lights from the person looking inside, they won't be able to see her because everything will be pitch black dark.
She could have also had this effect with curtains.
That's true. Touche. So she runs all over the house, terrified, but she knows this is what she's got to do. She turns off every light. Well, the last light that she has to turn off is in the living room, and she's so scared because of the big wall of windows.
The bay windows, yeah.
But she wedges herself up as close to the wall as she can get, and kind of just reaches her arm around, like onto the wall and around the corner to flip the light. And as soon as she does, to her horror, in those bay windows is those same eyes looking through the window. And even though she's turned off all the lights in the house and everything's pitch black, those eyes are looking directly at her. Yeah.
It's time to go, Diane.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Once she turns off those lights, she sees the eyes, but guess what those eyes are attached to? A human-shaped silhouette. So she's like,
out in the middle of nowhere.
No, exactly. And she's just basically dumbstruck for a minute because she's just staring back. Well, she finally comes to her senses and just kind of slips along the wall all the way back into the kitchen. And she goes and picks up the landline and she calls 911. And she's like, somebody is stalking my house. It's like somebody's out there. They will not go away. I need the police to get here like now. The police do arrive pretty quickly. And she runs out onto the porch to greet the police. And she just loses it. She goes completely hysterical, of course. The police do calm her down. And as she's telling them what has happened, some of the police start looking around or whatever. And Keith actually gets home. He pulls up. And as soon as he sees the lights from the police cars, he knows pretty much immediately what has most likely happened. So instead of being, supportive.
She's done caused the scene.
Yeah, exactly. Keith is pissed.
Yeah.
Because he's convinced that Diane is just scaring herself and that this is a super small town and word's going to get around that his wife is crazy.
Yeah.
And so he's embarrassed.
I was going to say, honey, we've just turned this into a Lifetime movie.
Basically.
Yeah.
So Keith comes in and immediately is mad and he just is starts fussing with Diane. He's like, look, they're looking everywhere. They've not found anything. You can't keep doing this. I've looked. The police have looked. Nobody's out here. You've got to stop doing this. People are going to start talking. And
let's give them something to talk about.
Right. So the police are like, we didn't find anything. Just be careful, blah, blah, blah. And so Keith is like, what the fuck, And they pretty much go to bed mad, but they eventually get over it. Well, 4 months go by. That's just Toby making noise.
Oh, baby.
So 4 months go by, and Keith and Diane they've completely made up. And, honestly, they forgot about it mostly. There hasn't been any scary occurrences or anything else remotely like that. Everything's back to normal. And Diane said in the episode that she honestly felt like that she had, convinced herself that she'd made it all up in her head.
Back to business as usual.
Right.
Honey.
It's early December, and the first big snowfall of the year is on the ground. Okay, so Keith is woken up early. This is on a weekend, and he decides, since he's up so early, it's still dark outside, that he's going to run and go into town and grab donuts and coffee for the whole family.
Oh.
And so off he goes. He gets, bundled up and everything and goes and gets in the vehicle and starts it up. And he's kind of just sitting there for a minute to let it warm up. And he, leans up and he's, wiping the sleep out of his eyes, but he adjusts the mirror. And when he adjusts the mirror, he gets because the lights come on in the back.
Yeah.
he like sees like the silhouette of like what looks like a human standing behind the vehicle. And he's like, what the, like that can't be a person. But he's like, and the more he looks, he's like, oh my God, that's a person. And so he actually like reaches over into the glove compartment, gets a flashlight and opens the door and gets out. And when he gets out, he shines the flashlight, nothing's there. So he's like, I know that I saw a person. Like I saw something.
Okay.
And he realizes how ironic all of this is. He was like, oh my God, what if this is the same thing that Diane saw both of those times? And I've totally just wrote her off, basically making her feel crazy, probably.
Yeah, you've been a douchebag, Keith.
Yeah, exactly. So he starts looking around and he thinks to himself, oh, tracks. It's just snowed. So he like shines his light around and looks, and there's clearly a set of prints. And it's a bipedal, like you would think person, but the feet are huge. They're like 14 inches. Yeah.
Hey, Daddy.
Oh, God. So, but I mean, it's still, in the grand scheme of things, looks like it would be human prints. Yeah. And so he's like, what on earth? And he just kind of like shines his light and is looking around while he starts following the prints. And they go around to the backside of his house. They go up to the porch, so the first story porch. And they've got their porch is connected to go up to the top, which also has like a little balcony.
Oh.
So
I don't know if I like that.
So, and then he watches as they go up and go to the second floor. He goes all the way up there and everything. The prints just disappear. He's like, okay, there's nowhere for them to go unless they jumped.
Lord, it's a leaper.
But no, there was nothing, no more prints. He was like, oh my God, they're on the roof. And so he kind of creeps back and is trying to, look around or whatever. He can't really get a good view. So he has to go down into the yard and step like far away from the house a little bit to shine his light. And he doesn't see anything, but he sees like messed up snow that almost looks like it could be like most likely footprints.
Yeah.
And he's like, what on earth is going on? There's somebody on my damn roof. So he calls his hunting buddy, Dennis. He calls him. He was like, get up here now.
Honey, good old Dennis going to show up with his rifle.
So he's like,
a Coors Light.
A Coors Light, honey. First thing in the morning.
Breakfast of champions.
Yeah. So he calls Dennis and he was like, I need you to get here now. I'm pretty sure there's somebody stalking my house. And like, I don't know what to do. Just come over here quick. Dennis is also the closest person that lives to them. Okay. He's so like 5 minutes up the road.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, so Dennis will be there within a timely 15 to 20 minutes.
No, he's like 5 to 10 minutes up the road.
That's not bad.
No. Dennis rushes over to Keith and Diane's house, and as he's approaching their house to like go knock on the door, Keith comes out and he's got a rifle in his hand. And Dennis is like, damn, dude, like, what's going on? And Keith explains everything. He tells Dennis everything, and he shows him the prints. And as they're talking about it, you hear this loud thump. Like something has like fell from like pretty high up. Like it's loud.
Like the roof.
Yeah. Like it is loud. They both go running. This sound comes from the other side of the house. So they both go running to the other side of the house, and they look around, look for prints on the ground. They don't see any, but so they're shining their light more, and they see the set of prints start and go into the fort, lead into the tree line. But here's the thing. The first set of prints that start before it starts walking are 20 feet away from the house. So whatever this was, like, took a running leap off the roof. And janked.
James, Teddy. He jumped 20 or so feet before he ran up in them woods.
Yeah. So whatever it was jumped 20 feet from the house and then took off. And from 2 stories.
Got them supple knees.
For real.
Honey, the best years of my knees are gone.
Mine too. Every time I go up steps, they click.
I like, honey, I gave the best years of my knees to hip hop and whoring. Not a bit of cartilage left.
That's it.
Nothing. No, but we can't get them shots till turn 40. I'm still too young.
I'm nowhere near. They start freaking out because they're like, what person could jump from 2 stories outwards 20 feet and first of all not be injured?
A crackhead in Florida,
I guess. So they go straight up to the prints where they start and follow them. They both have their rifles and they go into the woods. And they follow these prints for what feels like forever. But after they went a ways into the forest, they start hearing stuff in the distance. Like it sounds like a large animal like moving around frantically.
Mm-hmm.
But then like it goes quiet for a while, but then they start hearing it again and it's from behind them. And they're both freaking out like, oh my God, did this person or creature or whatever it is circle around us somehow? And now we're the ones being hunted. Keith and Dennis have been searching for over 2 hours now. And right as they're about to turn back around and head on back in, because they're just going in circles, they catch a glimpse of a small cabin in the distance that they've never noticed before. And they hunt in these woods. And they're both like, oh, well, maybe we've just not come this far back. I don't think we have. And they're like, but they start looking around and they're like, the prints lead that way. They decide to go. They're like, fuck it.
And it call us Nancy Drew.
Yeah. So off they go. And they followed the prints all the way up onto the porch right to the front door of this little cabin. Yeah. It's just in the middle of nowhere. I mean, worse than there's not a driveway. It's literally just in the middle of the woods.
Oh, honey, that done got up into wrong turn.
Yeah. And Dennis is pissed. He's like, this is the guy. This is the guy. This whoever was at your house. Yeah. This is him.
Dennis, I feel like he's a fuck around, find out kind of guy.
Yeah. So Dennis starts banging on the door and yelling, we know you were the one that was just over at Keith's house. We know you've been stalking him and his wife. Get out here now and show yourself. And he's just beating the shit out of the door.
You poon.
Right. So nothing comes of this. It's nothing but complete silence inside the cabin.
Poons.
And so Dennis just keeps trying. And Keith starts thinking, he's like, this really doesn't look good. Like us. We have followed this person back to their own property with guns, and now we're harassing them to come outside. He was like, we're the ones that's going to get in trouble.
There's at least 3 charges there.
Exactly. He was like, we just need to get out of here. So instead of hiking, Dennis doesn't want to. He wants to bust down the door, but they do leave because Keith puts his foot down.
Everybody needs a Dennis in their life.
I have an Uncle Dennis. He lives right next door, down the hill across the creek.
Oh, well.
I just realized how country that sounded. Down the hill across the creek.
Down the hill across the creek.
Jesus.
Chicken fries and a Dr. Pepper.
Shit. Okay. So instead of hiking all the way back to their house, they go to the closest road that they know is nearby. And they find, they know where a payphone is, and they use it to call Keith's dad to come pick him up and take him back to Keith.
A payphone. This just dated itself.
Yeah, it's in the 80s.
Yeah, this just dated itself hard.
Yeah. So Keith, his dad gets there, and he's like, he picks him up, and they get in the car, and he's like, why do you guys have your guns? And Keith explains everything, what happened, how they found that little cabin in the woods, all that stuff. And Keith's dad is like, wait, I know who lives there. And
of course he does.
Keith and Dennis are like, what? He was like, yeah, the guy that works at the tire shop in town, he's like an older guy, really odd, never really has anything to do with anybody, really keeps to himself. Quiet dude, he's just different. He works at the tire shop, and nobody really knows much about him, but that's where he lives. So after he tells them that, Dennis is like, we got to go to this tire shop.
Naturally.
Yeah. But I would have done it too. What? I would have totally went to the tire shop.
You take us to the Jiffy Lube right now.
Right now. So Keith is a little wary of doing this, but he decides to go with it because, this dude is harassing his wife,
Right.
So.
You don't mess with Diane.
That's right, honey. So the guys take a tire, just a random tire that they had laying around, in to be patched or filled up there or whatever. What?
I don't know. They got a decoy tire.
I got a decoy tire.
Well, poke a hole in it, make it look like it needs
help. And this is like, we gotta go in this tire shop. Keith is a little wary of doing this and decides to just go with it because, like I said, Diane's being harassed and now him.
Yeah.
So they get a tire from one of their houses, I don't know who, and they go to the tire shop and like they're going to get it filled up with air packed or some shit. And because they're like, okay, we're going to go in here, we're going to get a look at this dude and like go from there. So they go in, and the guy at the counter, they know for a fact is him. They actually know him. He's the owner, the mechanic at the shop. And they were like, we brought this tire in, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, hey, George, got a tire out here. Here comes George.
Oh.
An older, around 6'5" man comes around the corner, and this man has like orangish gold eyes. Keith says that it was the most distinct pair of eyes he had ever seen in his life. And when George makes eye contact with Dennis and Keith, like Keith and Dennis both saw like the moment of recognition that in George's features.
Yeah.
Where he was like, oh, these are the guys that just, followed me back to my house, and they know that I've been stalking outside Keith's and Diane's house. But he composes himself, takes the tire, and goes back and does whatever they need done, I guess filling it up with air or whatever. And he doesn't even come back out. He literally rolls the tire out into the middle of the shop and doesn't come out of the shadows. I guess that he was wanting to avoid more recognition or maybe a confrontation.
Wow. Because Dennis is ready to go.
Dennis is ready to throw down.
He's ready to throw down. Yeah, he's like, catch these hands.
Yeah.
Leaving
the shop, both men are pretty sure this is the guy. But at the same time, this is an old man. How on earth could he have jumped from 2 stories and outwards from the house 20 feet without getting seriously injured? Hell, bitch, he would be out down for the count.
We'd be dead.
Yeah.
Like, we'd be like,
every bone in my body would be broke.
Just leave us here.
Just leave me here. Leave me here. I'm dead. I'm dead. I'm dead. So, and also, Keith can't exactly go and tell police about any of this because technically, Keith and Dennis followed this man onto his property with firearms, which is illegal, and basically stalked him, stalked him right back. So, but he knows that he cannot tell Diane because if he tells Diane, she's going to want to leave, and they like move, and they can't afford it. Like they do not have money to leave.
So he's just going to lie to her.
So he does not tell Diane that any of this happened.
Yeah, she'll need to know.
Yeah. And, but with all this happening, he's like, I don't think he'll come back because he knows that I know. 3 months later, in March, Dennis shows up at Keith's randomly and knocks on the door, and he's like, hey, get in the truck. I want to take you and show you something. And Keith hops in, and pretty quickly, as I get going on their look down the road, he realizes that they're going towards George's cabin. And Keith is like, we cannot go to this guy's house. Like, I know it's, it sucks or anything, but I mean, he's not done anything. He's not done it since that we know of. And like, we can't just go onto this guy's property and start shit. Like, we'll be the ones getting in trouble. Like, we cannot prove he did this. Dennis was like, no, calm down. I just found out that George is dead. Like, he died. So let's go check out his house. And
makes sense.
Yeah, I'd have done it.
Right. I probably would have too. I'd be like, okay, let's pick real. See what we find.
So Keith is weirded out, and I mean, he does kind of feel bad about it, but at the same time, he does want to know what's in the cabin, like because something was off, obviously.
There's something buried underneath the floorboards.
Probably. So they're going down this little road, like this just little like access road, that is like 1 lane. And to get to the cabin, to get to like going towards the cabin. And in the middle of the road, there's actually a police car. And they're pulling up, and Keith actually knows the police officer. The policeman comes up to the car, and he's like, hey man, what are you doing out here? That kind of stuff. And Dennis and Keith just tell him because they know him. So they tell him everything that happened with the dude and all that stuff and how they were just curious. And he's like, well, it's crazy you say that because the reason I'm out here is because there's some weird stuff going on with this cabin. And they're like, what? And he was like, it's kind of hard to explain. He was like, it's just creepy. And he was like, and honestly, he was like, you might as well just see it for yourself. If you guys want to, I'll take you and show you. And they're like, yeah.
So lead the way, sir.
Yeah, lead the way, honey. So they go in the cabin, and they're shocked at what they see. There's nothing in the cabin. There's literally a table and a chair, nothing else.
Huh.
And so they're like, oh my God, this is so creepy. Like, how could you live this way for 40 years? I mean, there's not even any food in here. And he's like, oh, no. The police guy is like, no. He's like, yeah, that's creepy and all, but no, this isn't the weird part. And they're like, what? He was like, that is. And he points to a sheet, like across, like it's pinned up. It looks like it's pinned up on the wall. But he pulls the sheet back, and there's a metal door. He opens the metal door, and inside this room is like a cell, basically. It's like metal lined walls. Like sheets of metal has been put like up on the walls.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, and it's just a completely empty room. Smells like wet dog, but worse. And in the middle of the floor, there is chains and cuffs for both ankles and wrists.
Oh, honey, they done got them a dungeon.
So the policeman's like, yeah, we're trying to figure out what old George has been up to up here. And like I said, remember, it smelled like wet dog, but like worse.
Yeah.
And so they leave. Keith and Dennis are like both they're so shocked that they're silent. And they both know like immediately that whatever that was being held in that cage room or whatever, was what was stalking Keith and Diane's house with the eyes.
Yeah.
But in truth, they'll never know because George is dead or whatever. But I mean, it has to be George. I mean, the eyes matched.
Yeah.
But it's not a regular little old man that could be jumping 20 feet out and then 2 stories down.
Little Georgie had a secret.
Little George was a freaking, he was something, but I think a werewolf, honey.
I can say that.
And, it's so funny because, like, out of all things, I'm like, I don't believe in werewolves.
Right.
But after hearing something like this, I'm like, damn.
Honey, Lord.
So, but with George's death, Diane and Keith never had any issues ever again living there.
Well, that's good, honey. She could enjoy them bay windows in peace.
I know. So.
That was something.
But, yeah. No, creepy. Am I right?
Say, it balances out, and it all balances out.
Yeah. So,
that's a little creepy.
That took a turn,
that. It did. I wouldn't expect that. I'm not going to lie.
When I was listening to the story the very first time, which was years ago, I was like, I never in a million years was like, to begin with, I was like, oh, it's a stalker. It's a man. And then in the middle of it, I was like, oh my God, they're going to talk about Bigfoot. And then by the end of it, I was like, oh, werewolf.
Okay, I'm not going to lie. In the very beginning, I was like, oh, this is some Bigfoot-esque. You know, the mountains and the prints and stuff. And I'm like, that's Bigfoot, honey.
Yeah, same. I was like, oh my God, it's Bigfoot. And then when his dad told him about that guy working at the store or whatever, the tire shop, I was like, so it's not Bigfoot.
It's a werewolf.
And then I was like, oh my God.
Honey, mechanic by day, killer creature by night.
That's right.
Well, on full moons at least.
Right.
Well, if that legend's even true.
Yeah, who knows?
If they exist.
Yeah, if they exist.
I mean, we're not saying they do here at the Midnight Guild, but we're also not saying they don't.
Because, who are we to say? Exactly. We believe in Bigfoot, so why not werewolf?
Listen, honey, at this point in time,
there's not much that you couldn't convince me of.
Probably not, honey. Literally, the conspiracy theories are starting to make sense.
Amen.
I'm like, so they were right. Okay. They were right. All right.
But if you guys have any stories about any werewolf encounters or anything like that, you should totally send them to us on our Reddit thread. It's r/the Midnight Guild. The Midnight Guild's all one word. Or to our email, which is
themidnightguild10@gmail.com.
Exactly, honey.
Yes. You can also find us on Facebook.
Yeah.
You can find us on TikTok. Lemonade. We don't have any Instagram
Spotify
yet, right? No Instagram.
No Instagram, honey.
I swear, y'all need to calm down on the Insta. But it's okay, honey. It's okay. We don't need it.
That's right. But Spotify.
But yes, in the Spotify. Of course, now on Spotify, you won't get to see our lovely faces.
You can.
Can you?
I've got the video up on Spotify.
What? Never mind. I rescind.
I surprised you.
Surprise.
Surprise,
Surprise, surprise.
And then, of course, there's YouTube, honey.
Yes, there is the YouTube, the original, the OG.
The OG.
Yes, but now when you get onto that YouTube, you're going to want to what?
You're going to want to hit subscribe.
Subscribe.
And next to that subscribe button, you're going to see a little bell.
Ring-a-ding.
You're going to click that bell.
Click it.
And then you're going to select all.
All.
And honey, you won't miss a thing.
Won't miss a thing.
Not a thing, honey. Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.